Which brings me to my final question of today, and I guess in some senses the most important one, which is how will rights owners grow their revenue in this next period? How do the new behaviours of people like Dhruv and Ying and Mike and Abanar and Nico, how do they change the way that sports rights owners can make their money? And of course, historically, we as rights owners have made our money three main ways: media rights, sponsorship rights, and event day rights. And there's very little evidence that that fact in itself will change in the next 10 years, but I think what will change will be the models and the mechanics by which we commercialise each of those revenue lines. So what I'd like to do for the last 5 minutes or so is offer to you a sketch, a data-driven sketch of what each of these revenue lines might look like and how it might change in the years ahead. Starting with media rights. So for a typical sports rights owner today, a media rights business might look something like this. We have lots of media businesses in the world, but actually we only have formal commercial direct relationships with a fairly small number. And we call these businesses our broadcast partners. Our relationships with them centre around, almost overwhelmingly, live event coverage. That's the core asset that we sell to these businesses. Outside of that relatively small tier of broadcast partners, we have this whole ecosystem, this multitude of other media platforms and publishers and businesses who write about us. They create content about us. They deliver reach for us and our partners. Many of them carry our content if we offer it to them. But they're non-fee paying media businesses. We have few mechanisms to capture value from them. What I would suggest is likely to happen in the years ahead is that a media rights business for a sports rights owner might evolve in this manner. Notice the differences. It seems reasonable that rights owners will find ways to better commercialize different types of content, diversified away from simply just live event coverage. We'll be able to grow our media rights revenues through other content assets. Behind the scenes, documentaries, feature films, clips, near live, shoulder content, widgets, and games. All of these things have the opportunity to drive growth into our media rights businesses. Accordingly, we'll have more media partners if that comes to be true, because we have more media assets at our disposal to sell to them. Average package value may stay static, it may go down, but will grow through a greater number of partners, a greater number of media partners, stratified across more levels, because we'll have different levels of inventory. We'll service our most premium media partners with our most premium inventory and create a hierarchy from there to reflect the different levels of value that each of our content assets delivers to those businesses in question. In this way, media rights businesses can grow because of fragmentation, not despite it, because of it, because consumers have an appetite to consume all these different executions of sport, not just the live event anymore. We can diversify the types of media rights we sell and grow through fragmentation. Of course, in parallel, we'd expect every rights owner in the world to bolster out their direct-to-consumer proposition. Many of us have direct-to-consumer propositions already. We just call them our websites. Today, they tend to operate mostly as editorial platforms with some e-commerce. Over the next 10 years, we'd expect most sports rights owners and most sports content owners to turn those into genuine premium content destinations. So that as we're growing our media rights models, we have a strategic hedge and a strategic outlet to build more direct relationships with more fans around the world, capture data around them, and use that data to grow other revenue lines. Secondly, our sponsorship rights models. Today, many of you might recognize your own sponsorship model to look something like this. A fairly rigid hierarchy of commercial partners with a top tier in fairly clearly defined categories, perhaps a secondary or tertiary tier with contras and VIKs and things, and clearly defined categories serviced with fairly templated, boilerplated rights packages. I believe that sponsorship rights businesses will have the opportunity to grow through their adaptability, their ability to break this structured hierarchical model, and to service brands with more bespoke and more agile rights packages. So if brand A comes to me as a rights owner and says, I want to reach a wide audience at shallow depth, I have the rights and the inventory and the audience relationships to be able to service that. But if brand B comes to me and says, I want to service or reach a niche audience with greater depth, with a more direct response focused campaign, I'm able to service that as well. So in this way, sponsorship rights businesses can grow through flexibility. Of course, those of you in Katie's session today will have already heard we'd expect average sponsorship rights package values to go up as we as a community get better at understanding and measuring and articulating the value of digital media as well as broadcast media exposure. And we'll redraw the categories. Different types of brand will be active in the sponsorship marketplace. Instead of a CPG brand, maybe I'll have a relationship with a direct-to-consumer subscription razor blade brand. But here, the growth in sponsorship will come through average package value, not in number of partners as it did in media. Finally, our event day businesses. Event day businesses are inherently about the interface between customers and experiences. We have a customer base and we service it with the experiences that we have within our portfolio, within our business. And represented in the room today, of course, we have a fantastic cross-section of the British and European rights holder community with fantastic customer bases, with growing diversity. We're getting better with each year that passes at retaining them and addressing them. And we service them with an increasingly diverse portfolio of experiences, new formats, new ways of consuming, new ways of attending. But what I think will define the next 10 years of our sporting planet is diversification at a scale that we maybe today can't even fathom or imagine. We'll have larger customer bases as we start to design for and service and monetize segments that we've historically maybe underserviced. Our audiences will get bigger through diversity, and we'll diversify the types of experience that we service them with. Not just through new tournaments and new formats of our games, but also by changing what it means to experience something live, by merging physical and digital together and changing what it means to be at a sports event and consume it in the moment. So where does this leave us? Sports rights owners have opportunity for structural growth, underlying systemic growth like never before, because of structural changes happening in the world, as well as the increase in sports uniqueness and its appeal relative to other forms of entertainment. The media rights parts of our businesses will grow through fragmentation, or at least will have the opportunity to grow through fragmentation. As we develop more media relationships, more commercial media relationships, capture more of the value in the media ecosystem that goes around us and our properties. Sponsorship models will have the opportunity for growth through flexibility, to service brands in different ways, to break out of the historic boilerplated sponsorship packages that we've historically been shackled to. And event day rights businesses will grow through diversification of both customers and of the experiences that we give them.